evening, members of the board. Hope everyone's welcome today, as well as those watching online. Any questions on the consent agenda?
Yes, Mayor. I have a question on 5 and 6. I'm sorry, I can't get need a charging cord over here. On 5 and 6, I noticed we used an RFQ. This wasn't, can you get a little, I guess we get staff up here at Public Works or whoever's managing these two projects in regards to how this was bid?
Good afternoon, members of the board, mayor, vice mayor. So on number 5, the Byron Jones, that's a state contract. It's a contractor that we started utilizing. We utilized them just recently at Reservoir Park to do some of our tornado cleanup on our pavilion and tennis courts. And so we've just been able to work well with them. And the funding for this project is an old legacy grant that we received back in financial year of, I think, believe it or not, like 2018. It's been an ongoing project, and they were able to come to the table and really work with us on a bid for this project.
Thanks. But Leland, it wasn't, we didn't do a Lowe's, this wasn't an RFP, correct?
That's correct, no. So we asked for them to give us a price. We worked with our McClellan consultant engineer, and so they gave us a price. Originally it was higher. We went back to McClellan, looked at their cost estimates. They advised us on the pricing of it, and then we negotiated back and forth and got them down. It's actually just slightly below the 800,000. I believe the price is 780, and so we put a little contingency in there, and that's again because of our grant funds there.
Okay. Well, I just, it always concerns me, especially on a project this big, when we're doing an RFQ, especially on construction. And I know we've got grant funding, but it's still money at the end of the day, and I want to make sure we're getting the best. And when I see something on construction that's not an not an RFP, that I just have some questions about it. And is that the same issue on the Dunbar Community Center?
So on Dunbar Community Center, yes, sir. So Ketcher is a roofing company that we've started to work with, and they have a state contract as well. And so we've reviewed the entire project with them. I've stood on top of Dunbar roof with them and our consultants, Cromwell. Everybody appreciated their pricing and was all under the specs that were written by Cromwell. And so again, this is just a section of that. They've actually priced some other ones, and the funding for this one is the ARPA funds. But I completely understand your concern. A lot of this is just because we're trying to go through working with some people that are helping us with the process of time and time management. And so when these companies are already good standing companies with the city and we can go and work with them and get a good price, that's what we're bringing here to discuss today.
All right. Thank you.
Director Phillips?
Yes, sir, Mayor. This is, I think, for the city, excuse me, Emily, as it relates to number 11, just for clarification, of the 3 million, we spent 500,000, and this allocation will be?
So far, we have sent over 1 million. So
Oh.
the board allocated 3 million to the tech park, and 1 million of that has been sent to them. And so the request before you is 1.5 million. And so if you approve this, the balance will be 500,000.
Okay, that's exactly what I needed to know. And I guess, Mayor, at some point, probably get those folks out here to give us an update on the status of it. Thank you.
Director Adcock?
Yes, I would like a presentation on item 14, please.
And jump over 12 at this point?
We did. No one had their hand up. Did you have your hand up?
No, I thought we were just doing the consent items, and then we were going to 12 through 15, and I had a question on 12. I don't want to,
We got planning, so
okay.
you'll address number 12, then 15.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thanks, Mayor. On the write-up on number 12, when I look at it, and I wish I'd asked this question before the meeting, and it's probably maybe a simple response to that, but the engineer's comments about, let's see, parking, I don't think, in reading this, I don't know if it was answered or not.
Yes, sir. They did answer that about the parking. They said
Yes.
they were going to improve the curtain that leads into the parking, and they're going to put in parking stops between the parking area and what the new addition would be.
So when it asked, in the question D, when the engineering comments, will the existing tavern still be able to maintain the minimum parking spaces per city's zoning ordinance with the proposed outdoor beer garden addition, question mark? That hadn't been answered yet? Or?
Yes, sir. That has been answered and cleared up. Yes, sir.
It has been?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Was it in the write-up where it was answered? Did I just overlook it?
We must have overlooked it in the write-up, but it passed muster. It's only a 50 by 50 structure that they're building, so they don't exceed. They have parking there in the back and across the street, so they don't exceed the parking requirements.
Okay, all right. Thank you. That's the only thing I
Yes,
had
sir.
on that. Thank you very much.
Number 14.
Item number 14, Ms. Adcock?
Yes, it says it's R3, and we're going to reclassify it to R3.
Yes, they are going to do that for single-family residents. So they're taking that and they're going to make it, they want it to be R3 so they can rehab the structure.
So what is the R3 going to be used for?
Single-family residents?
Single family?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yep, and on number 13, I just want to be clear that this is just a designation change. They're not making any structural changes to the property.
Right, this is just a designation change. Yes, sir.
And on number 13 is what I'm referring to.
That's right, yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Director Adcock, is your hand still up?
Yes, he answered mine. Thank you.
Any questions on item number 16? Any questions on item number 16? All right, well, anything from members of the board before we adjourn? I got a couple announcements, but.
Nope, I may have a question, but your announcements may address them, so I'll let you go first, Mayor.
Nope, you have the question.
No, my question was about, I think last week we talked about June 25th being two discussions. Is that still the plan? I don't know if you and staff got together this week and made any thoughts on that.
Yeah, we'll address one of that. I just want to try to address a lot of different stuff, but any other, while we're here, members of the board, are there any questions in regards to the sales tax? I know I gave some updates last meeting, but just, are there any glaring things? No questions about anything? Okay. The plan is, yes, is to do the June 25th short-term rental discussion. What we would like to do, and staff, we met today actually, it's just kind of, what we want to do is really get, clearly the meeting could be as long as possible as it relates to short-term rentals, and so we want to try to at least have the discussion framed for you all. Clearly, you all take it where you want to take it, but I think conceptually is to show our current ordinance as it is, which we modeled after some other cities. I know a lot of work that Director Webb played a role in that and meeting with different folks alongside our planning team. That's what you all voted on. That's what we've been enforcing. We know that we have experienced some challenges since the start of that that we're starting to see in the courtroom. And so to kind of guide that discussion, and again, we'll have more printed detail by June 25th, is one, to kind of share our ordinance, two, a potential solution from an enforcement standpoint, because there are a lot of short-term rentals in our city well before we got to this stage as it relates to the ordinance. And so there's a potential solution as it relates to some software tracking that can kind of help us with enforcement to keep our paperwork together if and when we have to go to court and the city attorney's office has that information at hand. That comes with a cost on our end, but also a potential cost as it relates to the Little Rock Convention and Visitors Bureau, which takes in all of the tax. Well, they kind of collect that tax and kind of get it dispersed. So we have to take that into account, that we are the capital city, and so it's kind of hard to compare us to other cities in the state of Arkansas because we're going to probably have more Airbnbs and more whatever the other companies, not just Airbnb, but other short-term rentals from that standpoint. So that's another component of the conversation. Then the third component of the conversation is going to be the actual process, how we go through this process and how it comes to the city board, and let's say the city board says no. Then there's an appeal process to go to, I believe it's the Board of Adjustment. Board of Adjustment could say, not so much, you can go back to Planning Commission and come back to the city board. And I'm just roughly, this is not verbatim, but we'll have the details for you by June 25th. And if the city board said no again, then there probably would be a legal challenge. And again, that's very rough, so we'll get you the actual complete details. So that's a portion of the conversation, is the process, the enforcement, and potential legal realities from that standpoint. And then I think that was kind of majority, that's basically gonna be the conversation for you all to say, are we willing to take on additional measures as it relates to cost from the enforcement standpoint? And then two, make certain we all are aware that it comes with some, we don't want to get in a case where we're being very arbitrary in our decision-making on these, because these are still property owners, still business owners, and we don't want a case made against the city that we're being arbitrary in how we make our decision. We know every decision is different, but we want to just make certain that we got all our ducks in order from that standpoint. So that's generally going to be the discussion frame points for you all to make some decisions. It may say, we got it how it is, let's keep it how it is. We may have some tweaks. We don't know. You guys will come forward there from that standpoint. So we'll have a greater detail on that conversation on June 25th. Any questions about that?
Yeah, Mayor, excuse me, the only thing I would add is that we get an update about how many we have approved and how many are, I guess, in the queue, just so we can have those kind of frame of reference as well.
Yes, we have that. I think it's actually, you all have approved 98, somewhere around there. We don't know how many is in the queue, but we also are aware there are some people who are choosing not to get in the queue, and that's another discussion point that's going to have to be a part of that process as well. Vice Mayor Webb?
Thank you. Just to follow that up, I think we've all heard on a couple of the ones that I've had, we've had folks who say they sat there and looked on the Airbnb and Vrbo and they counted how many were in their neighborhood, and I think one person counted 76 in the general neighborhood, and somebody else counted 100 and something. So what we've approved is one thing that's not a clear picture at all. So it would take somebody time to sit there and go through that process of looking them up, but I don't think we can have the complete discussion that we need without that, because anecdotally, I feel like they're all kind of in one spot. And I think that's an important part of the discussion.
And I think we got some of that information, but I will say, based on the technology that staff has looked at, that'll also keep a track of everything in the city as well. Emily may want to share a little bit more about that.
Well, just there, I've spoken with Hot Springs, and the software that they use has a lot of that type of information.
So we don't have that today. What we do have is what staff is aware of. So I know we may want to have a fuller conversation, but unless we get that software, we won't be able to have that complete and full conversation. Director Adcock, your hands back up.
Yes. Mayor, along these same lines are the group homes. We have lots of group homes in Little Rock that are operating. They've got DHS funding, but they did not get approval from the city board or from the housing or the planning department. I think we have one of those coming up tomorrow at the planning commission meeting. If we're going to look at these homes, let's look at the group homes also, because I think we're going to hear more about those. I know that Walton Heights has got one, and they think that they're allowed because they are funded by DHS. But I would like for us to also look at those.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Secondly, as we shared, we should have the FAQs. We'll get that to you all in the Pony this week as the recap of the sales tax components. We'll also put that online on the very comprehensive detail page of the sales tax proposal. So I want to make sure you're aware of that. You'll get that in your Pony today. And of course, please go to the website. There's everything you want to know there. Secondly, if we can figure it out, what we may do, again, right now it's going to be June 25th, but if we can figure it out earlier, we may have a discussion on June 18th, but you'll get the information ahead of time. But what I do want to ask here today, and of course throughout this week we'll discuss it. I think I've shared with you some of the suggested, from what I've heard from you all, what I've heard from the residents, is that we need to make some increases to infrastructure and to public safety, which we will, which we've already shared that will be done, particularly from the public safety fleet side of things, and including fire. When we're able to, and I share with you as well, to keep from a lot of back and forth, now clearly when we get to it we will, but try to mitigate that as best as possible so we can really get on the road towards Tom drafting the ordinances, because again, we have a timeline of when it has to be at the ballot, and we also have to account for resident awareness campaigns and advocacy from that standpoint. And so one of the questions that I have for you today, as I make some suggested changes for your consideration, and of course, you all will then hopefully move forward with the ordinance process. If I'm able to find X amount of dollars for infrastructure and public safety fleet, would you like 50% of it to go to infrastructure and public safety fleet, or would you like it 70% to go towards infrastructure and 30% to public safety fleet? That's really the question, and still will be a good amount of money. And I'm talking right now, it could be somewhere between 15 and 20. I think that'll be very helpful on our end if we can, and then I think for you all, it'll be very helpful too. Director.
Yes, Mayor, I want to make sure I understand when you say public safety fleet, is that police, fire, mail,
Police and fire.
police and fire?
Yep.
Okay.
We don't, yeah, it's police and fire. So essentially, let's just say if it was 10 million, it's going to be more than 10 million. But if we can find somewhere between 10 to 15 million, if it was 15, do you want 7.5? And this is annually, I want to make sure I'm clear. Do you want 7.5 to go to infrastructure? Or would you, this is all annual dollars. And would you 7.5 to infrastructure, 7.5 to public safety? Or would you want 70% of that 10, if it was 10 million, do you want 7 million to go to infrastructure and 3 million to public safety fleet? That's my question. Who do I want to answer?
When would you like the answer?
I mean, I don't think it's that detailed of a question, but I mean,
No, I agree with you, but I mean, do you want it this week or?
I would like for us to start the conversation today. It doesn't necessarily have to be finalized today, but we need to have some public conversation since we're here. And it looks like we got a lot of time since the meeting's just about over. I just want to have some free conversation while we're here in public. Keeps from 10 different, meetings or phone calls.
This would be, as you said, annually?
Yes.
And would this be in addition to what is on the proposal right now?
Yes, so this will be added on top of. So for instance, if you look at public safety fleet right now, there is over 10 years, it's 37 million. And so let's just do it annually. Right now, annually is 3.725. So the question is, if we got another $10 million in the pot, do you want 5 million to go to public safety and 5 million to go to infrastructure? Or do we want 7 million to go to infrastructure and 3 million to public safety? That's really the question. And it's going to be more than 10 million.
I'll give you my opinion.
Yes, that's what I would like.
And I'll give my opinion after Director compares.
My thought is that I did it 50-50. Unfortunately, there is an infinite amount of infrastructure we need to take care of. And the only way we're ever going to get chipping away at that is two different things. We have to go ahead and take care of our needs for public safety. So, and I'm assuming when you say this, we're talking about trucks, vehicles, the crime center, we're talking about hard costs.
Yes, sir.
So if we go ahead and you can find that money, then my thought is looking long range. If you can go ahead and do that, then we go ahead and start assuring the public that we're going to go ahead and be able to start fully funding those things. Then if we go ahead and take what's in the tax and start increasing our tax base, then we can then start allocating more of that money to trying to take care of infrastructure. And it is just a sad reality that you can't do 20 million for both of them, but to me, take care of the thing that's most important to people right now that they're thinking about. And that would be my thought process on how to do it.
All right. Director Phillips, then Director Webb, then Director Hines, then then Director Adcock.
Thank you, Mayor. And I generally agree with Director Compeers. Obviously, I think we've heard Director Honeywell tell us there's over $1 billion in infrastructure needs. So whatever we can do to go towards that needs to be helpful. Mine would only be with a caveat that I've been contacted by, folks in our public safety offices about what their needs are. So does that 50% amount sufficient to what they need? And if the answer is yes, then I'm with the 50% amount.
The answer would be yes.
Okay, well then, if the answer is yes, then I think we chip away and split it evenly.
Director Webb, Vice Mayor Webb.
Thank you. To give an answer on a hypothetical question, when I don't know what the yearly needs are for apparatus, is not something I would be willing to do at this point and just arbitrarily say 50-50. I mean, I want to see an arbitrary number on a dollar amount that isn't even in concrete, because I want to know the real exact plan from the fire department and the police department about what they think the needs are over the next 7-8 years. And as I remind everybody, and we talked about this last night at my neighborhood meetings, I have 100 million in infrastructure requests in Ward 3, 100 million. And with what we're getting this cycle in the bond money, based on the current cost, I would be able to repave Markham in Ward 3, and that's it. And I've gotten several more infrastructure requests just in the last 2 or 3 days. And so I would like to see the numbers from those departments about what the needs are projected out. And then I'm always going to look for infrastructure dollars in a variety of places because the need is so great.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Webb. I do want to, again, the numbers that you have before you are supported by the chiefs of police who manage those budgets as it relates to public safety, fleet, and fire. And then second, I want to applaud the city board, particularly on the police side. You'll recall that about a year, almost not even a year ago, you all did a 3-year a strategy to add more cars to go to a single-use fleet for public safety. And so you all have done a really good job on the police front. We've also done a really good job on the fire front. However, I think we all know when things break down as it relates to the current supply with different things that are coming from across the country and out the country, that takes time. We got some fire apparatus right now that, as Chief Hubbard would tell you, costs about $2 million, and it takes a year to get most of that. So I would assure you, based on the police chief, the fire chief, and fleet, the current dollars that you have are currently in order, and this is on top of that. So we're talking about an additional $40 million on top of what we already have done and you guys have done, in not only with our general fund, but also with the American Rescue Plan Act dollars that you all put more money into fire apparatus and public safety fleet. So all of this is additional money from that standpoint, and we can reshare the information that we just shared 6 months ago during the budget meetings as it relates to that, but this is all on top of from that standpoint. But what we'll make certain that we get that for you, Director Webb, Vice Mayor Webb. But so, is it 70-30 or 50-50? Because what I want to get to that, and here's the reason why, and at the end of the day, you all still have to vote on it. So it's not, this is just to get you all a document, because you all asked for a document, we'll get you that document. So what I'm asking, I'm just doing this because it'll help me as I move forward. Is it 50-50, 70-30 that you would like to see?
I'm not going to give a number on,
Okay,
I mean,
sure thing. I understand. I just want to make sure I'm asking everyone. Director Hines?
Mayor, I'm kind of following the same camp as Vice Mayor Webb in that I'm not willing to put 50-50, 70-30. The two major things I'm hearing, and the one merry-go-round we have not gotten off has been fire apparatus. And this predates you being on the board, but the last time we ran a sales tax, we had money in there to buy fire apparatus, and I think we fell short on it. We didn't hold up our commitment, and then we took our foot off the gas pedal. We also did that with fleet, and that's because we were using capital funds to fund operating expenses. And I think you and I and the majority are in concurrence that whatever funding we do has to be dedicated and has to be permanent. Now, whether it's a 50, and that's.
Oh, and I forgot, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
I forgot to say, everything we're adding is permanent to the director, so thank you for that.
And so I think talking with Director Hinton, the chief, both the chiefs and on the fleet side, because that's, I know we've got a lot of equipment on order, but we've got to get our head above water. The other thing I hear, other than fire apparatus and police, and I hear more fire apparatus, the police vehicles, because we're doing take-home and that increases our force, our active police force. Those are two primaries. The three primaries are that and then potholes. We have fallen so far behind because, again, over the years, we have used temporary funds that are sunsetted bond issues to do street resurfacing. Street resurfacing is maintenance. It is not capital. We don't get enough life out of our resurfacing. As I drive around my ward, and I know I've got streets that, you know, they're telling us they should get 15 or 20 years. I know it's been less than 10 years on most of them that are blowing out. So I think we need to have Public Works, what is the number for street resurfacing that gets us our head above water and gets us catching up? And I know we've got some of the bond issue, but you can't look at the bond issue. That's one-time money. We've got to continue to lay over, and I think it's a question, how many miles do we get with resurfacing and do we take care of all the needs? I think that math equation will be real simple because I think those are empirical numbers that once you get the fleet numbers and stuff, we can see. I would lean towards, you know, I don't know. I don't know what that number is. A 50-50 split's fine, but if we need to go 60-40 for a time, one way or the other, I think we've got to be flexible. And this is, the flexibility within those funds is we on the go forward, at some point in the future, we may have to rejigger that percentage. So.
No, and I totally agree with you, and I'll come to you, Director. So thank you, kudos to you, Director Hines, because I forgot to even mention that it's permanent. And so what we're talking, when we talk about the 50-50 split, whatever it is, if it's 50-50 or 70-40, or it can't be 70-40, 60-30 or 70-30, whichever one,
70-30.
it goes into the pot of money, but the 3/8, that's permanent. And so as Director Hines just suggested, it may come a point in time in that money that we may need to rejigger. I'm using your words. I hadn't used that before, Director Hines, but you can figure that out.
Can I interrupt?
Yes.
I know I'm going out of order because I just want.
No, actually, Director Adcock. Then we'll come to you, Director Adcock.
Okay, I thought I could help. No.
Yeah, we can just go in order. Director Adcock.
Yes. The first thing, I would want to see where you're taking the money from.
Yes, ma'am.
Secondly, what are the other needs? I would like to have the fire chief and the police chief here so we can hear if there's other needs that they feel like might be more important than this many vehicles at one time. And third, how many of these vehicles are going to be take-home vehicles? That's a wonderful idea, and I know it's a big thing for the police department, but are we ready at this time to take on take-home vehicles for all the police department?
So where the money's coming from?
Where's the money coming from? Number two, is this the most important needs for the police and the fire department? Number three, how many take-home vehicles would this include? And I'd like to have the chiefs and Mr. Hinton come before us so we can ask them questions also.
Yes, ma'am. We'll have everyone that's a part of those Ps here. So everyone that needs to be here will be here. Director Phillips, then Director Peck.
Thank you, Mayor. And maybe as we say in the culture, maybe I misunderstood the assignment, but I thought the question was, hypothetically, do we want to, of this new money that you said you can find, did we want to split that new money up? What percentage so you can update the budget spreadsheet to give to us so we can have a further discussion about the sales tax as a whole?
Correct.
Okay, so if that's the case, then I do understand Vice Mayor and Director Hines' point, but we're just trying to get a new number on the paper so we can have a fulsome discussion later, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood. So my answer is unchanged. If that would have been a different answer, then I would have changed my answer. Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Director Peck?
Thank you, and I would agree with Vice Mayor Webb and Director Hines. It's hard to just agree on a percentage or a number, and I also agree with Director Adcock. I would like to hear from Chief Hubbard and Chief Helton on what their needs are, and then have it very clearly broken down, what's for apparatus, what's for the police. I know it's overwhelming, what the needs are, especially in the fire department, and I know a lot of it is the supply chain. I know we're using ARPA funds, but I'm very nervous about our aging fleet. I'd like to take a really hard look at that. I know there's one apparatus out there that's 30 years old that can only go 50 miles an hour. I know we've got 6 pickup trucks now answering calls. It's just very concerning, and the things I'm hearing from my constituents and just people that I run into, they like all the parks money and all the projects downtown, but infrastructure and public safety are the two things I think we just have to focus on and address. And like Vice Mayor Webb said, it's just, I understand what you want and how that could be valuable, but I'm just not prepared to break it down yet. So if we could talk to Chief Helton and Chief Hubbard and get their true real needs, I think that would be very helpful. And maybe we do that before the 25th.
Oh, yeah, that's,
Maybe we do that
again,
next week.
yeah, that's my goal. And again, I'm trying to avoid 10 different meetings.
Yeah,
That
I
gets
understand,
taxing. So that's why I want, when we all together, let's get it all fleshed out. And ultimately, what's going to happen is as Director Adcock shared, I'll figure out where to take the money from, tell you where that came from. I'll make a suggestion, but I needed to get a general sense. I've heard a general sense. Some may not want to commit to a 50-50, 70-30. Some do. And so that helps me. And then I'll make the suggestion for your consideration, because nothing happens without the city board voting yes. Be very clear. And so, and then once I give this proposal, I'm just going to really kind of step aside, because we've had 7 meetings, we've heard a lot of stuff. And again, we're really not, I want to make sure we're very clear. We're not going to, there's not a perfect, we need $1 billion to get everything we want done. And as Director Computer shared, there's certain things, it's not an either or, it's a both and on a lot of stuff that we got to get done when we're talking about, we know all the effort that this city board approved, $1 million for a downtown. And so we got to really focus on how we focus on that in this tax. We talk a lot about infrastructure and public safety. We talk about parks and what parks can do for our city and public safety and revenue generation. We know about the stuff with the port. So it's so many different things. If we had $1 billion, we're just trying to get to a good first start. And as we want to make certain that we as a city board, we're unified. What we've done, and I want to say thank you again for all who participated. We've heard from the community. They shared, everybody, as you'll see in the FAQs, everyone had a different question about a different thing and different interests. And so we'll try to put that all together for your consideration. And we'll have, and just so everyone's aware, all of the folks who are part of the presentation that we've taken to the people, they'll all be here every step of the way, as far as department directors to ask, so members of city board can ask questions. I would tell you, there's nothing in here that they didn't already say, hey, this is what we can deal with, this is what we need. And so we can definitely get that extra information. We'll totally do that, Director Peck. Sure. Director Lewis, that's your hand. Then Director Miller.
Thanks, Mayor. I can't give an actual percentage like Hines was saying earlier, but I do want to put on record for Ward 6 that majority of our issues are infrastructure and drainage issues. So if we can keep that in mind when we're talking about adjusting the numbers, just so we can get more of these projects off our list, because we keep adding. And that's just the way it is. But if we can allocate more funds to the infrastructure and the drainage, that's what I would like to see. In
Yes.
addition to what you have, the sports complex and all that, I'm for it. But I don't want to lose focus on more funds going towards the drainage issues.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Miller?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I don't have a problem with you having some numbers to work with. Just give us something. Now, I mean, we got to have something. And I appreciate you willing to give us something to work with, because we can adjust from that standpoint. I want to make sure that, you know, the people that talk to me hear me as it relates to their infrastructure needs. You know, we have these meetings. We ask our residents to list what they need or what their wants are. I have some people who've said, look, my request has been on this list for 20 years, and you've never gotten to me. And so I don't, you know, if I go through an exercise like that, I want to give them some hope with regard to their streets, curves, drainage issues, because I hear it all the time. My house is flooding. Every time it rains, it's that. And I'm sure we got stories like that in just about every ward, but I certainly have a lot in my neighborhood. So I have a bias towards infrastructure. I'm going to say that loud and clear.
And that helps me. That helps me.
Yeah, and I do know that bond money is short-term money. I mean, the capital, if it's not ongoing, it's not for maintenance, but it seems like we have renewed the bonds for streets since the 50s. So it seems like that's something that technically it may not be permanent money, but it sure seems like it comes about every time. I mean, there's never been a gap in it. And so to have more money to address some of the needs from the people that I hear, as opposed to them saying, why go through this exercise if you're never going to get to my specific needs? So I want to give them hope.
Yes,
and
sir.
so, again, I have a bias towards infrastructure. Certainly, everyone knows how supportive I am for public safety, but some of these residents have been on this list for 20, 30 years, and I don't want to discourage them, but I don't want to give them a false sense of hope, too. I want to at least show them that we're doing something as it relates to the infrastructure, and that's where my bias is.
Yes, and may ask Director Honeywell to come up just for conceptual comments because I know you keep this all on your head, and but
No pressure.
But what I do want to share is, again, it's about, thank you, Director Miller, probably did a better job of me explaining it. Having this conversation helps me get you all something. Ultimately, you all are going to decide. But also, we got to get you something. And what I'm hearing, again, that'll be very helpful as we move forward. But I do want to make sure, because you talked about, because we all get a call about, well, this has been on this list forever. I want to be very clear is, and Director Hines and I've had a conversation about this, I do think from the whatever the percentage amount goes to infrastructure, it has to be a part of the permanent P of public infrastructure for the 3/8, and have a dedicated pothole drainage street program. I know he's preached that to me, it's in my head. So if you're asking, you know, what of this set amount of money that we find, I'm not going to suggest to put that in capital. I'm going to suggest to put that in the ongoing expense to create a dedicated program for streets and drainage projects that we have in perpetuity. But I also want to be very clear that until we have a $1 billion package, which you all wouldn't vote for because we got so many other needs, we're still going to have stuff on the list. However, this gives us a dedicated funding to chip things away. And because, and this is a whole nother policy discussion, and this came up in many of our meetings because of how the city board's historic policy, and this predates everyone on the city board, that you all have always said, hey, we're gonna split money up by ward equally. And that prevents certain areas and certain wards who may have had things on the board for 10 and 20 years, when there may be some wards who really don't need their money. And Director Peck has said that I may not need my money. And
Not all of mine.
not all of it. But she's not, I mean, for obvious reasons, she may not give that to Director Webb.
I tried that.
And so that's why I want to be very clear from the Hope perspective is in long term, we have to figure out the equality equation that prevents progress on this infrastructure side. I just want to be very clear from that standpoint. John, how much are we spending, just give or take, just on general street resurfacing? I know we got the street resurfacing in the bond, but just general day-to-day from our gas tax money. It may not be totally correct.
Well, from our just regular operating budget, we don't spend any of that money on resurfacing. All of our street resurfacing program has been funded either through the sales tax or bonds since 2011-12. The typical average that we've been spending is anywhere from $2 to $4 million annually on those contracts for resurfacing. Of course, when we're talking about since 2012, costs have increased, so the amount of streets that you can resurface in 2012 is vastly different than what you can do in 2024 for that same dollar amount. Any additional funding that we get, and I'm just going to plug us at this moment, but it can help us at least keep that level of where we've been able to do resurfacing, and the amount that we've been able to do is going to help us continue at least at the level we're doing it now.
So members of the board, I want you to just hear what he said, that we as a city since 2011 have funded our pothole program in drainage at $2 to $4 million a year. And that's based on what we've had as relates to our bond program and sales tax. Clearly, we don't have a sales tax, and we lost that in 21. So all we have right now is the bond program, which is around $2 to $4 million. So whatever we add to this in this infrastructure number, particularly on the resurfacing, so right now it's $4 million. And so which would mean it'll be $6 million if you add the current number. And so that's how to look at it. But okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyway.
All right, Director Phillips.
I forgot to take my hand down, Mayor. My apologies.
All right, Director Hines, is your hand still up?
No.
All right, Director Computers.
Just to put this in perspective for me, if you, and I'm glad you know where $20 million is.
I
But
didn't say 20.
what's that?
I didn't say 20.
How much did you say?
I said 10.
10, okay.
But
Well,
almost, I said 10 to 15 is what I said.
10 to 15. Well, let's just say you found 20, and this makes it. So while you're out looking, dig a little deeper.
Which is fine,
I know.
That's why I want to have this
Let's just say
conversation.
that here's the problem that we hear all the time. We all want to get both these things done. And I do too, but I can't listen to the firemen tell me that they're driving around in a pickup truck with a water barrel on the back. I just can't do that. I can't do that anymore. We, under your direction and wise direction, we started buying cars and we stopped the people leaving our city because it makes better sense economically in hiring people to have those cars at home. So let's just say there was $20 million, just to show you if you took $20 million and you split it 50-50, then that would be 10 and 10. If you split it 70-30, that would be 6 million to fire and police and 14 for the other. But then if you start, and this is I'm just saying just for the sake of argument, and I agree with you, I'm the only one that voted the last time, do what you're saying. But if you just split it up by wards, you're only talking about $2 million a ward if you spend the 14 million. And as Kathy said, that gets you nothing. If we don't start looking at this practically and saying our overall goal has to be, how do we increase the amount of money coming in? And it can't be on property tax, so it has to be on tax revenue. That means more people spending more money here. And I think what your program does that. But the numbers are exaggerated by my example, but you won't get Markham, 2 blocks of Markham.
Not at all. No, I agree with you. That's what.
And so, to me, we've got to go ahead and take care of fire and police, and we're not talking about salaries or anything like that. We're just giving them a place to stay that's good. We're giving them the apparatus they need. We're giving them the cars they need, and we're giving them the equipment in the cars. And if we go ahead and take that off the table, then we can start dedicating more of the money to the things we need to get done. And so if you just divide it out, it's as Kathy said, she doesn't have enough money to do the other. And I know it's hard to go to these meetings and hear someone say, my street's been on as that lady did beat you up that night kiddingly in Southwest that you knew so well. It's been on the thing for 25 years. You're my friend. You go, and it was a good natured. But long term, the only way we're going to start satisfying our needs is getting more revenue into the city and that we can dedicate more revenue. And so I would still tell you, I'm still for 50-50. Take care of fire and police, apparatus, equipment, and then let's get these other things done in an orderly fashion.
Right, I agree with so. I understand because you're correct. If we do 50-50, it's really just $2 million a ward, which doesn't, but we still need to do it. But the money goes further for fire and police. It just does.
We get that off the table.
Yep, I agree with you.
I mean, it's just, we can't, we're gonna one day have a fire and we're gonna have someone go to my house in a pickup truck with a wagon on the back and they can't hook it up to the fire hydrant a block away, and we're gonna be in real problem.
I agree with you. I like what you just shared. Director Phillips.
Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, did yours go back up? Director Peck?
Yeah.
Sorry, then.
And I'll be very brief. I wanted to share this from Chief Hubbard, who I've been texting back and forth, figuring he would probably be listening. So I just asked him what his thoughts were. He says, yes, I agree a 50-50 split will allow fire to create a sustainable replacement plan. That would also address rising costs. It sounds like that number would increase fire share to approximately $4.5 to $6 million. So I just wanted to share.
Oh, wow, thank you. Director Phillips?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just want to reiterate, like Director Compiers, I think the 50-50 split makes sense, and I appreciate his example with the 20 million, because it make it for easy math, but if it's 10 million or 15 million, then the number divided by the wards is less than 2 million. So it's even less of an impact. And from a just strategic perspective, I like the idea of resolving an issue. I mean, what I do in my day-to-day job, I want to get that case resolved, right? Then I keep working on another case. It sounds like if we did the 50-50, we can get closer to the resolution, if you will, with the fire apparatuses, than we can get to a resolution with $1 billion worth of infrastructure projects. So I want to reiterate my support of the 50-50 split for you to put it on a new spreadsheet for us to have a full discussion with the department directors in the coming weeks. My second question is, and this may be a question for the city attorney, may not be for today, but may be for later. If this part of the tax is permanent, what are the parameters if we did, and I'm not going to use the term that you and Director Hines use, I'm going to say reallocate those funds. So if in 8 years we decide the 50-50 split is no longer necessary. It needs to be a 70-30 split. When can we do that? Or can we even do that? Does it have to be 8 years? Does it have to be 10 years? So I think that's a question that we also should get an answer to about what the future looks like as it relates to the permanent
I would just caution you on it, and as I will bring up our dear friend Bruce Moore, he would caution you on all of this. You can't bring, the 50-50 split is just going into the 50-50 split is only for you all to say, we got some extra money to go in some existing funds. It's not a 50-50 split of fire and police. So I want to be very clear.
Public safety and infrastructure.
So you got the Director Commissioner got me saying 20 million, I say 20, but you got 20 million. That came from somewhere.
No, I get that, Mayor, and let me interrupt you because I think maybe I misspoke or I misunderstood you, but I thought I heard you and Director Hines talk about using a different word about what I'm calling reallocating the percentages. And I'm saying, are you saying that's not tied to anything? We can reallocate every budget year?
No. And I know you weren't here for the last one, so I don't think were you here?
I don't know what the last one you're referring to, so I can't say if I'm
2011.
sure or not.
The point,
I wasn't here in 2011.
The point is when you have the money in number one, you all can do whatever with the money. That's number one. Let's be very clear. If you all vote and say, hey, you want to change how it's spent, but when the voters go to the ballot, they're only voting for two things, 5/8 with a sunset and a 3/8. They will see you all vote on a resolution. And historically, since 2011, this board has remained tied to the resolution that they voted on. Now, if you all want to change the resolution of years later, subject to,
and that's what I'm getting at.
Subject to and the reason why I say it's kind of hard to say this, so we don't even need to discuss it, because these dollars, once you vote on the resolution, it's tied to bond finance and
if the answer is no, Mayor, or complicated, I get that too, but I heard the conversation between you and Director Hines as if we could do that. And if you're saying it takes an act of the board to redetermine allocations from a sales tax, several years down the road, then I understand that too.
But yes, but it's a yes and no. I want to be very clear, because what Director Hines is talking about, he was very narrow. He's talking about a resurfacing. Am I correct, Director Hines?
I'm talking about, and I know we've got drainage issues and some of those things.
That's what he was.
But drainage issues tend to be more capital-driven projects because there's usually an underlying. I'm talking about straight up street resurfacing to repair streets.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the two, so.
No.
Strike my question for the record. I completely misunderstood you, Director Hines. Sorry, Mayor.
And this is why we come under fire from our state legislators, because they want to know what we're doing with our state turnback funds. We just had our public works director say, we don't do any street resurfacing with our turnback funds. And that should concern all of us. That's why I've been asking, and still haven't gotten it since last November, of what our unrestricted street fund reserve balances are. And I still don't have that number, but I'm gonna quit beating that dead horse.
No, sir, don't quit, because our new CFOs should be able to get that to you here soon.
Mayor, that's all I had. I'm sorry for taking us afield. I misunderstood the conversation.
And we'll get that to you very soon, Director Hines. We did have some transition. I know you know that, but still you need to have it. Director Computer, is your hand still up? All right, well, everyone, my goal, you all have given a lot of great feedback, and I'm grateful for that. That'll help me present us a suggestion to you, and so we'll make sure we get that to you all. My goal is try to have that to you by June 18th with the department directors here. If not, I've already told you June 25th, but I'm gonna try to do it a little earlier, because this was a very beneficial meeting with, as Director Adcock, you said, you want to know where the money comes from, you want to know the take-home vehicles, and you want to know, you want to have the department, the police chiefs here.
What the other needs are.
And the other needs are. Yes, ma'am. All right, thank you, everyone.